Goes my hair down?
I think so, mine may be
I
wet.
don't know, I was trying to coordinate with this color.
Very
Is that
good job,
good?
Mom.
Yeah.
I'm sure I did, but
Well, the other color was
I
good.
actually have all three of you
Good.
in view, so, and I'll just let it stay right, just like that, and we're rolling.
one of the benefits of being a psychologist in Maine is you can entice your family to move to Maine because it's an awesome place
Oh,
to be.
yes, yes,
So-
yes. That was a hard sell, but
It took me 17 years, but part of the blessing of being in Maine is that my parents now live here and have sold the farm in Indiana. Well, not the farm, but the farmhouse and buildings in Indiana. And they live up here part of the time and in Virginia part of the time. So part of my life is that when I get done with work, I can come see my parents who are a mile away from me.
which is wonderful for us.
That's
We love it.
It's
We really
nice.
do.
So it's pretty nice for grandkids to be able to.
We tried for years to get them to move to Indiana. And I've been telling everyone, you know, they talk about Mohammed in the mountain. If the mountain won't move to Mohammed, Mohammed has to go to the mountain, so here we are. We plan to be in Maine most of the year, actually. But we don't know, we've never experienced the full measure of Maine yet.
We'll see, we'll get them through one winter first.
All the Mainers roll their eyes when they mention winter.
No, I don't think most of them.
No, most of them say it's beautiful. It's just long. So if we can go to Virginia for a couple of months, why, that will ease the winter loss.
Another benefit of being in a rural area, which we all know from always pretty much living in rural areas, is you don't have to deal with traffic. So,
Oh, that's true, and that's one thing we like about this area. Hamden is the same size as Tipton, Indiana, and this community's quiet.
quiet. It's about 5 minutes.
Yeah, this
from me to work.
prepares you for death up here. It's so quiet.
It's almost too quiet in Avalon Village. And also,
We're not quite ready, but I don't think. But we might have to get
if
ready.
he would run down the street screaming, I'm sure he'd attract a crowd.
That's true. So about 5 minutes to work for me and about 2 minutes to my parents.
And the kids come over here, they come a direct route, there's a path from their house to ours, across the highway, of course. but-
Yeah, about 2 minutes to the grocery and,
And you have enough now to
yeah,
satisfy
I
you?
think so.
Okay, it was nice meeting you, Bob.
Nice meeting you too.
I call him Fred.
Notice I answered.
How close I was to might be in helping him, maybe not. Well, he asked me, he said, there's nothing we can do. I said, there's 4 boys, I think, Mike, Jim, Kevin, Larry, is that all? Anyhow, they all live right around there, big, stout, not fat, but just strong people. And I said, I don't know, for what I've learned from Diana, the only thing you can do is you can corner him someplace. And I said, physically get him into a, I don't know what they call it, I called it a roundhouse, someplace where he can't hurt himself, and have somebody talk him out of what I think could happen. And then that's when the phone rang. And it was all over. They found him. And that's about,
That's about it. I think it's just the,
Bob Gabriel, I said that, he killed himself.
Was there anything about farming that you think had anything to do with that in particular, or just life?
Just life. I think it's very easy on the farming to get backwards with the bank. I mean, at some time or another, you feel like you can capture the world and you borrow money, I'll pay her back. And if the hogs don't bring the money, the corn doesn't bring the money in, just like that, you're thousands of dollars in a hole.
Okay.
And how do you get out?
So it's a kind of a business where you're always putting out money, borrowing money, but you've got a big income at one particular time, and you're counting on that. And
it doesn't show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, my mother-in-law one time was upset with me because I didn't show up for the 4th of July party, which was her mother's birthday also, at her home place, which is wheat harvest to me. And my wheat's ripe, and wheat is a very vulnerable crop. It grows, ripens, and you've got short time in which you can get maximum yield out of it. I couldn't leave it. And I, you know, now at this age, I think, well, I probably should have. But at that time, I had my back against the wall financially,
Yeah.
and I'd stay home and cut wheat.
So you have family pressure, you have the crop.
Yeah, and my, you know, take care of business. That's what I try to do. Because you grow the crop. It don't grow all year, but it's a one year deal. And there's lots of things. It doesn't stand very good. When it's ripe, it's ripe. You can get it, and if you have a thunderstorm come through, it goes right down on the ground.
Wow.
And it'll even start growing, which makes the price of it very weak. So anyhow, I just say I can't come. Of course, then it doesn't rain, doesn't storm, and everybody says, "Well, why didn't you show up?" But I chose not to. That's about it.
So where the expression "make hay,"
While the sun shines.
yeah, you know, certain time, got to do it. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. All right, we're rolling, and you can say anything you want.
Dad, the reason that I wanted to do this today is just because we've talked many times about how many people have killed themselves in our Mile Square at home in Indiana. And I just thought it was important to kind of tell the real story of what that's like, because a lot of psychologists talk about there being a lot of suicide in rural areas, but they don't really know the human story of what that means. And as we got to talking about the people in our Mile Square who kill themselves, we came up with a number of people just around us. And I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about some of the people we thought of.
Well, one that comes to mind real quickly is Alan Teeter. I believe that's his name. Anyhow, he was about 30, I believe, in there. Started a school, and kids made fun of him. And this is back 60 years ago, probably. So, but anyhow, come to find out he couldn't hear. So when the teacher would ask a simple question, you know, what color was the bird or whatever, he said the sky's blue, and the kids would all laugh. And I think he was in maybe 3rd or 4th grade or so before they discovered that he was just not hearing. Well, from that, he kind of grew up in a community where he was made fun of. Nice looking guy. And, you know, it caused him a lot of trouble. He worked in a factory, and when he graduated out of high school, and that carried on. Of course, factories are notorious for, you know, bringing the worst out of some people. And they were teasing him, and about he said his car would run so fast, and they said they didn't think it would. Well, he went out of town speeding, and he got stopped. Of course, he had to pay a fine. And they teased him some more, I guess, in a day or two, and he did it the second time. as I remember. This has been a long time ago. And anyhow, he made the statement he was not going to go in front of that judge again. And consequently, I don't know whether you were with me or not, when we went past his house on a Sunday evening, he was sitting on a stump of a tree by the road, and just looking up, and in my heart I said I ought to stop and talk to him. I knew nothing of that story, but he just looked like a guy that was depressed, but I didn't. And we got up the next morning, found out he killed himself. And that's one. He used to come down, back on him, he used to come down, we lived right side by side, and he'd get on my tractor, on what we call the drawbar, the back, and talk to me all day. Only he didn't talk, I talked. And he'd say uh-huh and uh-uh. And his mother, after he died, she called me, wanted me to be pallbearer, and I was only, had been in the community like a year or two, and I was surprised. And she said, well, he really liked you. And I thought, I had no idea he felt that way. But when he'd ride the tractor, I'd ask a question like, how are you, Alan? Okay. That's all I could get out of him. But that was more conversation, evidently, than he got out of a lot of people. And so he grew fond of me, and I didn't know that, really. But he was wearing me out all day, because all day, trying to make conversation with somebody who doesn't talk, I found it difficult. But I liked him. He was a nice guy, really. Misunderstood.
Now, the Cricket,
that's his uncle.
that's his uncle, and he doesn't live all that far from us either, really.
No, he lived, well, the same farm that this boy lived on. It was a 200-acre farm, and he lived in one corner, and Alan lived in the other corner. And his wife passed away, and Alan was, Cricket was probably 65 in there, maybe 70, and developed cancer. And they were putting him through the ringer, chemo and all that good stuff. And he said, I'm not going to do it. Well, he didn't, and he killed himself. And who else?
Well, we were talking about Bonnie Park, and who also lives like just across the road.
Yeah, he lives right across from these people. He, I don't know why he committed suicide, really, but he did. I didn't know these people very well, but it happened fairly early on, my being in the community.
What years about would that have been?
I moved there in, when was it?
58?
Yeah, but I think Bonnie probably died in 70 in there someplace. Can't tell you exactly.
And he was a farmer too, right?
He was a farmer. And
a good farmer, you say he
yeah,
kept a clean field.
yeah, he was, the way you judge farmer is how clean his fields are, at that time. And who else? Oh, Dallas Davenport, which I didn't know other than I just heard of him. He lived in Goldsmith, which is another 1/10 of a mile from.
And Goldsmith's population's what, 200? If that?
I
I don't think it's that.
No, it went down quickly.
Yeah.
Bob Gabriel, and he killed himself. But his wife died, and he was just despondent. Didn't like to be alone, I guess.
And then the one that really made us think about talking about this was Kevin. It was after the farm crisis, and you and I had been talking about farm suicide.
That was in the early 80s. Kevin, I drove a school bus for a few years, and I always used this is an exaggeration, but he spoke to me 2 words in a year about. First day he'd say hi, and the last day of the school he'd say bye, and that was he's just a very quiet, introverted person, very bright, but you had to really stomp on him to get him to talk to you. And he was farming with his dad, and his dad passed away, and in the 80s the farming turned upside down financially, and anyhow, and
He was in trouble.
he was in trouble, and he had a wife and a boy, a young man about 6, 7 years old, and he pulled I think a truck in a garage and rolled the windows down and gassed himself.
You'd been worried about him though.
Oh yeah, I'm not much of a meddler. I'm very introverted myself in a way, and from what Diana told me, she was in Lincoln, Nebraska then, and she was talking about farmers having difficulty financially and taking the quick way out. And I thought from what she had told me, I thought he fits the pattern to a T. And finally I got up my courage, and his brother was a banker in town, and he did my taxes for me, and talked to him a lot because he was a farm boy, and we understood each other pretty well. And anyhow, I got up courage to stop because I thought they ought to watch him. And I went in and I said, usual, how are you, Larry? And he said, okay. I said, how's Kevin doing? He said, oh, he's going to come out of this financially. I said, that's not my question. I said, how is he doing inside of himself? Is he handling it? And he said something, I don't remember exactly what, but the phone rang. And this is, so help me, this exact timing. And he stood up, and the blood just went out of his face. And I said, Larry, is there anything I can do? And he said, no, too late. And that's.
We're rolling, so just say anything you want.
How are you today?